My name is Emile Baizel. I'm a blockchain solutions architect at AWS. I've been here for over 5 years at this point. Prior to here, I was doing Solidity development over at Consensus, and then have been mostly working as a blockchain architect since joining AWS. And thank you, ETHGlobal, for this opportunity to participate in this hackathon. At AWS, we've been doing a lot of work over the last couple of years in generative AI and more recently in agentic workflows. And so everything that we're going to be talking about here and everything that this hackathon is about is really close to what we are doing at AWS. And we're always excited to see what developers build with the tools and the products and services which we develop. So today we're going to be talking about Amazon Bedrock and Bedrock agents. But to start off, I want to give a high-level overview of how we view generative AI and how we're incorporating it across our stack. So here we have a sort of 3-layer stack of different levels of integration with generative AI. So at the top, you have user-facing applications. You have Amazon Q Developer, for example. This is a coding assistant that plugs into VS Code, other IDEs, which you may be using. In the middle, we have Amazon Bedrock, which is what we're going to be talking about today. And then at the bottom is for machine learning engineers. So if you're building a model from the ground up, you would use Amazon SageMaker, a broad choice of different hardware which you want to run that on. But that's for a different day. Today, we're going to be talking about that middle piece with Amazon Bedrock. So Amazon Bedrock is a fully managed service that offers a choice of foundation models from leading AI companies such as AI21, Amazon, Anthropic, Meta, and many other ones, with a broad set of capabilities to build many different types of generative AI applications, and a big focus on really simplifying development while maintaining privacy and security. So Amazon Bedrock is fully managed. It's serverless, so you don't have to worry about any of the infrastructure. You access it via APIs, you access it via SDKs. Very easy to get started and build with there. And with Amazon Bedrock, you can easily experiment with a variety of these models, and you can customize them privately with your data or using external data, either via fine-tuning or retrieval-augmented generation, or RAG. And you can create managed agents for executing complex business tasks, such as booking travel or processing insurance claims or other things like that. And all of that can be done without writing any code. I assume this being a hackathon, people will want to get into the code, but just to give you an idea of the building blocks which we are providing, you could go into the AWS console, click a few things, enter a few things, and have an agent that is running that can crawl a website and answer questions about it and things like that. Cool. Get this. Get my PowerPoint set up. There we go. Okay, next slide. So we speak to a lot of customers at AWS, and what we hear a lot is that what the most important feature to them of Bedrock is how easy it is to experiment with different foundation models and having a range of models to experiment with. Customers are moving fast in this space, and generative AI itself is evolving very, very quickly, and there's new options and innovations happening almost daily. And just last week, we saw the market turned on its head with DeepSeek R1. And we moved very quickly, and now DeepSeek is available within Bedrock. I'll get to that towards the end. So the space is moving very quickly. Everyone knows this, and Bedrock is really a great way to easily test out different models and experiment without having to do a lot of heavy lifting to change that. Again, everything's via APIs, and so so if you're changing a model, for example, you're basically just changing the label of the model which you want to invoke. Cool. I do want to touch on two families of models. The first is Anthropic Claude models. These have been out for over a year now. I think they're almost a year, I should say. And these are familiar to many people. Claude 3.5 Sonnet really raises the bar in like industry intelligence and in benchmarks for graduate level reasoning. And you got Claude 3 Opus, which is the most intelligent model, and 3 Sonnet and 3 Haiku, with 3 Haiku being the fastest and most cost effective. And that's really good for sort of high volume use cases. So it's really dependent on the type of application which you are looking to build. Again, testing with any of these is very straightforward to switch between them. And prior to reInvent, which for those of you who don't know, it's our annual conference that takes place right after Thanksgiving, we had the Amazon Titan model family of large language models. And at reInvent, we announced the Amazon Nova Foundation models. And these are new generative generation, these are state-of-the-art foundation models that deliver frontier intelligence and industry-leading price performance. And so Nova includes a couple types of models. So there are understanding models, which are these ones on the left, and these accept text and image and video as input, and they generate text as output. And on the right side, you have creative content generation models. So these accept text and image input, and they generate image or video output. And Nova models are available only on Amazon Bedrock. And the 5 that are available today are Nova Micro, which is a text-only model that delivers the lowest latency responses at very low cost. You have Nova Lite, that's a lower cost multimodal model that is also very fast and is great for lightweight tasks. And then you have Nova Pro, that's a highly capable multimodal model with a good combination of accuracy, speed, and cost. And on the right side, you've got our creative content FMs, foundation models. So Canvas is an image generator using natural language prompts. And then Nova Reel is a video generator, which takes prompts and creates realistic videos from that. And in the middle is Premiere, which is not launched yet, but it will be our most capable multimodal model, foundation model, and that's for complex reasoning and also to be used as a best teacher for distilling custom models. So if you're trying to distill down to a smaller model, you can use this one as the starting point from that. And Premiere is coming soon. And as I mentioned earlier, DeepSeek, this slide was added on Friday or over the weekend because that announcement just came out. But as you can see on the right there, that's the AWS console. And now DeepSeek is one of the generation models, one of the foundation models, which you can use within Bedrock. Cool. So we just touched on inference and selecting different LLMs for your inference. Now I want to switch gears and talk about agents. So Amazon Bedrock agents are foundational building blocks for customers and developers to create their own agentic applications. So as we just saw, you can choose from a variety of foundation models to drive the intelligence of the agent. And you can configure the agent with many different features, such as memory retention, knowledge bases for retrieval-augmented generation, guardrails for protecting the user and other features as well. And developers provide these agents with additional tools and functionality so that the agents can actually go and achieve their tasks. And if you've ever worked with AWS Lambda functions, that's essentially what a tool is here, is you equip the agent with this capability and you tell it when to invoke this tool. For example, if you want to create a calculator, you just tell the agent, use this thing here, and it's a Lambda function that basically just does simple math or something like that. And an important thing to understand here too is with agents for Bedrock, you get visibility into the chain of thought of the agent. So when you're debugging and you're trying to figure out why your agent isn't doing what you think it should be doing, you can see step by step with all the traces of everything that it's thinking through and why it reached a certain decision, which helps immensely when you're building and debugging. And recently we announced Bedrock Agent Support hierarchical multi-agent collaboration. So you have what's known as a supervisor agent, and this agent can have its own intelligence and its own tools, but it can also be aware of other agents that can invoke that can be invoked for specific tasks, and you can now have orchestration from this sort of supervisor higher level agent. And these agents can all be used across different orchestration as well. So you can have one sort of sub-agent that's being used by many different supervisor agents. And agents plan and execute these tasks using data which you've provided either from your own private data set or from public data. It can really be driven from many different ways. And as I mentioned earlier, you can start creating agents just from the AWS console. So if you are interested in just seeing what that looks like and setting up a Lambda function, you click through there, and then you get a Lambda function that's a basically hello world dummy function, and then you can easily extend it to do the actual work which you need it to do. Cool. So the way agents work is they essentially break down and orchestrate the task. So when a user gives it a question or a task, the agent thinks through everything which it needs to do, and then it figures out and creates a plan for how it's going to accomplish that task. And to help it accomplish this task, you can allow it to securely access and retrieve data from your company's or project's data sources or anywhere else. And this would be part of retrieval-augmented generation to help your agent sort of become more specific to your application. And it can take actions on your behalf. So it can invoke API calls on your behalf. And that's where we get into the action groups and the tooling which you equip your agent with. And then we've got the chain of thought trace and ability, and the ability to modify the agent prompts as it's going through that trace. So we have a default orchestration template for agents, but with a lot of these services, we have a sort of best default, but a lot of what I'm covering here, you can customize it to really tailor it for the application which you're building. So if you're interested in trying out Bedrock and multi-agent collaboration, here's the first of a few QR codes which I'm going to share. This is for the multi-agent, which we just released recently. And some examples which you can see are planning a trip, where you have different agents that specialize in different aspects of planning a trip, building a marketing strategy, and other things like that. And these are all available on GitHub. Cool. And the last thing I want to show is as of this weekend, we got our PR merged into Eliza OS. And so now your Eliza OS agent can use Amazon Bedrock for its intelligence. And I wrote this PR, so if you try it and it doesn't work, you know exactly who to shake your fist at. But please let me know, and I would be happy to help you debug any issues or answer any questions which you have around this. All right, so moving on from agents, and I want to talk about retrieval-augmented generation. So as many of you probably know, what an LLM, when it's created, is frozen in time at that time where it was created. So it doesn't know anything that happened afterwards, right? And so that's where retrieval-augmented generation really helps, because you can supply data to the agent or to the during inference for the agent to provide context around something that the agent may not know about, either because it happened after or it's private data, so it was never available for it to be indexed. And that's where Bedrock knowledge bases come in. So RAG really allows the agent to get data from your company data sources, and then it enriches the prompt with that data to deliver more relevant and accurate responses. And knowledge bases is a fully managed RAG capability that allows you to customize your foundation model responses with that contextual and relevant data. And where knowledge bases really help developers is it automates the entire end-to-end RAG workflow. So this includes data ingestion, data retrieval, and augmenting the prompt. And so this eliminates the need for writing custom code to integrate these data sources, to manage the queries. And again, it's something you can set up just from the console, where you click a few buttons, set your data source, and you have it go. So for example, you can have an S3 bucket with hundreds or thousands of PDF files, and maybe you want to make these available for your agent so that it can have more knowledge about whatever's in those PDF files. You set those in S3, you go through the console, you select that as your data source, and then you set a few other options, and then that now becomes available to your agent. So your agent can now query that data, and I'll get into how that works in a second. Cool. So when you're starting with knowledge bases, you start by selecting what vector store you want to use. So our default is Amazon OpenSearch serverless, but knowledge bases natively support Postgres with PG Vector via Amazon Aurora. Also supports Pinecone and a couple of other ones. Or if you have an existing database, you can link it to one of those. So you have a lot of options when it comes to what vector database you want to use. We already talked about S3 as a data source. You can also use a web crawler. So if you want to crawl websites and set that on an iteration of, crawling it every 5 minutes or something else like that, it'll pull that out and it'll pull all that data in, index it, and all of that is managed for you. You can also connect it with native connectors, which knowledge bases has. And that's typically more for enterprise data, but I just want to mention it here. Things like Salesforce, or if you're using Confluence or SharePoint, for example, you can connect those automatically and have those be available from your knowledge base. So once you've defined what your vector store is, once you've defined what your data source is, then you need to define the chunking strategy. And this is where the data itself, so if we go back to that PDF example, that PDF then gets chunked into many different chunks and added to the vector database. And there's a bit of trial and error with figuring out the right chunking strategy. And chunking is basically how many pieces you want to separate the document into, how much overlap you want to have within the chunks. Because remember, what we're trying to do here really is make it so that when a user queries or asks something related to this, the knowledge base will be able to retrieve from the vector database something that is relevant. And so we have some smart defaults, but you can play around with it and see if you're getting the results you want. And you can get even more advanced, where not just setting the chunking size, but you can actually go in and override the chunking itself. And an example here is if you want to add metadata to each chunk, right? So that could help with more semantic search, right? So instead of just indexing the content of the PDF, you can actually supply additional metadata about that PDF, and so that'll make it much more likely that it gets pulled in. All that to say, it's very easy to get this set up, but if you want to get in the weeds, you can also get in the weeds with a lot of this stuff. Cool. A couple more things. We continue to add new features to knowledge bases. Yeah, was there a question? No. All right.
There is a question from Mihai. He asked, can I return the logits probability for a prompt?
I'm going to ask to save questions to the end because I just want to have the presentation be unbroken, but I would love to answer that question at the end. And I forgot to mention this at the top. Thank you, Varsha, for speaking up there. Following this call, we're going to have some office hours. So that'll be a great time to ask questions like that or any other questions you have. So we continue to add new features to knowledge bases. Recently, we introduced Amazon Bedrock data automation, and that really helps you extract, transform, and generate structured data from multimodal content. And so all of that gets automated for you and made available into your knowledge base. And we also introduced Graph RAG, which, as the name suggests, is it makes your data available in a graph database. And so what that helps you do is start linking relationships for your entities across data sources. So instead of just having one view of your data here and one view there, you can start linking them together within a graph database. The last thing I want to touch on, not related to generative AI, but because it's a Ethereum hackathon, it's a blockchain hackathon, I want to share our public blockchain data. This is free data. It's available on AWS public data sets. And it's a continuously updated set of data across 7 blockchain networks. And the way to think about this is the data gets parsed from the blockchain. It gets put into an S3 bucket, and then you can access that data from your application. And the QR code here is a project that myself and Simon from my team worked on last summer, where it's essentially a text to SQL querying of this data. And so the way that works is you get your prompt from the user, your LLM. We instructed the LLM and made it aware of the schema that all the data abides by. And so then when the user prompt comes in, the large language model can say, okay, so the user wants to know how many Ethereum transactions there were yesterday, and it knows which columns in the database map to that type of question, and it constructs a SQL query, and then it goes and queries that. So if you're building something where you want your agent to be aware of historic data, this could be a great way for you to bring that information in there. Cool. And the last thing I'm going to leave you with is three QR codes here, and these are for helping you get started. So on the left is our documentation for Amazon Bedrock. It's pretty broad. I mean, as we saw here, we've got LLM inference, we've got knowledge bases, we've got agents, and so, but that's a great place to start. If you like YouTube videos, we have a lot of YouTube videos there. That's the one in the middle. It's a step-by-step tutorial. And if you're looking for open source samples of examples of what projects have been built with Bedrock, that's the QR code on the right. It's a pretty broad set of applications and demos which have been built there. And with that, I want to say thank you for listening and watching. And yeah, let's turn it over to some questions if we have some.